Hello everybody, my name is Yogesh and I'm going to talk about the 8 behaviors that good negotiators have. I've been known for a good amount of time for closing big deals now. And I've observed over a period of time that there are certain behaviors, if you use, you create a win-win solution. I'm going to go step by step to tell you all these 8 behaviors so that you are better when you're making deals. Point number 1, reduce your anxiety while you're closing the deal. Why is it important that you reduce your anxiety? Point number 1, it is seen on the negotiation table. Point number 2, the other party can take benefits out of your anxiety. Point number 3, it is very important that you look calm and patient while you're handling big deals. Now that is something that you have to practice before you actually get on the negotiating table. So what is this practice? Of course, my coming videos will also tell you what is the practice that you need to do in your day-to-day basis which reduces your anxiety while closing your sales deals, and typically the big ticket items. Let's move on to point number 2 now. Point number 2 is document your entire deal step by step. Now, documentation does not mean that you document everything at one time. You start documenting every conversation that you're having with the other party. Now what happens is, what is the benefit out of it? 1, you are able to get the reference points right while you are actually sitting on the closing table. Point number 2, it helps you to create evidences that the parties agreed to and you have agreed to. So there are no irrational demands. I hope this point of documentation is taken seriously while you're wanting to close your high deals. Point number 3, research based on facts and not on assumptions. Now what happens when you do certain things over a period of time, and you do it successfully, you assume that this is how it will happen. But let me tell you, every negotiating deal is different. Every situation on the negotiating table is different. Every stakeholder is different. And hence, if you do not research your data well, you may get into a trap where you will have to assume things and sit on the negotiating table. Well, there are certain creative assumptions that you have to keep in place, but you've got to use certain tools. My next videos will keep talking about what are the beautiful, amazing, factful tools that you can use which will improve your negotiation. And most importantly, improve your profits. Because every deal that you close which is profitable for yourself and better for your customer in terms of service, you're going to improve your top line and your bottom line. Let's move on to point number 4. Know your possible alternatives. Now, why do we say that you always need to have an alternative while you're sitting on a negotiating table? You need to have alternatives because you get emotionally attached to the deal. It's a big ticket item. Say you want to close a 1 crore deal or a $1 million deal or a $1,000 deal or whatever it is, right? You want to close that, you have worked really hard on it. Because you worked very hard on it, you get emotionally attached to it. And because you get emotionally attached to it, you tend to fall short of what you really want. And most of the good negotiators, veteran negotiators, understand this and they take the advantage of this. So make sure that you have your alternatives. You are okay to move off the deal or take the best possible alternatives, because at the end of the day, negotiating is a creative game. Let's move on to point number 5 now. Learn politely to say no. When we say learn politely to say no, what does it mean? People, when you develop relationships with your other party who are the negotiators with you, they tend to take certain things on assumptive basis or relationship basis. If you are not assertively trained to say no to people, keeping the interest of the project or the deal in mind, they will take you for granted. And if they take you for granted, trust me, your deal is also going to be taken on granted. So make sure that you learn the art of assertively saying no while keeping in the interest and relationship of the deal. Let's move on to point number 6 now. Point number 6 is, you need to have extreme clarity of what you are ready to offer to them. Option number 1, option number 2, option number 3. And in that regards, what are you going to trade off from your side? So what they are expecting in the list form, what you are ready to give in the list form. If this exercise is done on paper, it gives you immense clarity and more importantly, extreme confidence when you're actually sitting on the table. Well, my experiences, I've had deals of $1 million as well, 10 lakhs, 20 lakhs, maybe it is also at some point in time 2 crores and 3 crores. I have never negotiated. Now, when I say I have never negotiated, does that mean that I don't take the best second offer? No. Preparation is the key. So when you actually able to map every stakeholder in the deal, in the deal, it is immaterial whether he's a 70 years old guy or a 25 years old one, but you are able to map everybody and you absolutely know what are their emotional needs, what are their mental needs, and what are their scene needs basically. So I call them as my aspiration, my want, and my need. Okay, so every deal will have this. Don't forget, every deal will have their aspirations, their wants, and their needs. All right, so you got to be very clear upon what are you playing against. Are you playing against aspiration? If you play too much on aspiration, you will go on toss, because then your deal looks very, very shallow. If you focus too much on wants, then it is high possibility that you're only catering a transaction. If you focus too much on needs, then you are short-sighting your entire deal. So all of that is extremely important, and hence if you make a note, if you make your party note and their party note, it becomes very easy for you to actually trade off the need versus want versus aspiration. Let's move on to point number 7 now. Point number 7 is communicate more and communicate often. Now, realize one thing. Your job is to be on the mind of your other party who is negotiating with you. If you are not on their mind, you are not on the table. I have seen to my experiences that deals get closed in mind first and then on table. So before you even sit on the negotiating table, you actually can close the deal. Now, how do you do that? You got to have commitment towards communicating every smallest piece of around the deal, every progress around the deal. Now, while you do that, who could be your stakeholders while you do that? You could have internal stakeholders, you could have external stakeholders. Internal stakeholders would be your colleagues, would be your subordinates, would be your bosses. You as an entrepreneur, probably you need to communicate with your team. External communicators, external stakeholders could be your vendors, your suppliers. In my case, there are consultants, your customers. If you are constantly communicating with them, they feel you are working. They are working with somebody who is threat-free. They are working with somebody that they can trust. Often communication and more communication. There's nothing called as bad communication, because if you do more, it doesn't kill. All right. It in fact adds value. Just be conscious about how you're communicating and what are you communicating. But do oftenly communicate with your stakeholders of the entire deal. So that's point number 7 for you. And let's move on to the last one, and that's the 8th one of all the behaviors required for successfully closing your negotiation deals, which are high tickets. Let's move on to point number 8 now. Point number 8 is something that is your behavior that you need to keep in mind. Always keep the doors open. Never, ever, ever close a negotiating deal and just shut it off. Unless it is unethical, unless it is absolutely not logical, unless it is not following the law of the land, never close the deal. And always keep the deals open, always keep the doors open, because this deal may not work. It's an event. Do not get emotionally connected to it. It's an event. If you are emotionally connected with that event, you lose the opportunity of scaling up with that customer, with that vendor, with that supplier for future. So make sure that you always keep the doors open, so that when the right opportunity comes, you are able to drive through that opportunity and make the deal happen for future. These 8 behaviors will definitely make you a very confident negotiator. This will absolutely make you a trustworthy negotiator. And more oftenly, they treat you as a collaborator, because the game of negotiation is all about collaborating with the right people. This is Dr. Yogesh Pawar, founder of School of Inspirational Leadership, welcoming all of you to the SIL's learning videos in Masterclass. All of this content is absolutely coming free to you. If you like this, share this to people, comment on it, and give us your feedback, because that allows us to do more. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next series.